4 a.m. Time to rise and grind. I like to start my day by getting up straight away and getting dressed. When I'm ready, I go downstairs. I say hi to my Matryoshka Amogai collection and stare at my BTS water bottle for roughly 15 seconds, 30 if I feel like it's a good day. After all of that, I like to have some breakfast. Now you may be wondering, hey Elliot, why don't you take in that table outside for breakfast? The answer is because Elliot is lonely and has no friends to eat breakfast. He may live in a house with 3 other guys, but they have much better things to do.
Hey, that sounds cool.
In fact, Elliot is so lonely that 5 years ago in high school, he started to write a self-insert novel about himself, published online at www.nautic. This video is on loneliness. People are lonely. If you don't believe that that's true, I recommend you look at the Instagram comment section of any video about a couple. But we're not here to talk about lonely Instagram addicts. I'm sorry, were you watching that video? God, I hope that transition worked, otherwise this would look really stupid. What you just watched was an old version of that video that just sucked. I mean, come on, look at this guy. He's so deadpan that I can't come up with anything. But anyway, since I'm unemployed and have nothing better to do, I'm going to redo this whole video from scratch. Hey, from like outside the screen, now's your time to get up. Stop watching that crap. Come on, we're doing this again. Okay, so bring in the black borders. Where's the cool narration? Where's the inspirational music? Okay, so bring those in. Not that music. Yeah, that one. Put it away for later. Okay. Yeah, anyway, here's video version 2.0, the better one. People are lonely. If this wasn't already obvious, I suggest looking at the comment section of any Instagram video of a couple. But we're not here to talk about lonely Instagram addicts, nor are we going to address why one of those comments was mine. Instead, I want to talk about a video I came across recently by the video essay YouTuber Aini. In the video, Aini talks about how in China, men outnumber women by quite a substantial number. Naturally, many of those men are lonely. These men are going to look to fill that loneliness in various different ways. One particular way they've thought about doing this is they look to a certain kind of female streamer called a nujabo. I'm probably pronouncing it really terribly. I don't apologize. Some of these men, called big brothers, give these streamers ridiculous amounts of money, and in return, the streamer will treat them with special attention both in and out of the chats, and they will have a dominant presence in their live streams. Through the example of an ex-streamer called Xiao Xiao, Aini paints a grim image of an industry that exploits everyone involved. Men are exploited through their loneliness and longing for intimacy to give money to streamers who don't really care about them, or for agencies that control these streamers. Women, particularly those from disadvantaged backgrounds, are exploited by agencies and managers to sell themselves out to escape whatever background or circumstance they came from, often giving in to demands to degrade themselves for others. It's not difficult to see how these parasocial relationships, as Aini calls it, between these big brothers and nujabos are a kind of poor imitation, a caricature of a traditional romantic relationship. They present to these lonely men one-on-one intimate relationships with beautiful women, and in return, the men are to provide them with money for their basic living. The fact that these men look to a pseudo-romantic relationship to fulfill their loneliness, as opposed to, say, joining a new club or making new friends, isn't really that surprising. In his book, The Denial of Death, Ernest Becker describes what he calls the romantic solution. The short version of this is that in the aftermath of the death of God, humanity still needs meaning. This need, which was once attached to God or some higher spiritual state, is now projected onto a love partner. The spouse is now the one to justify our existence. As Becker puts it, after all, what is it that we want when we elevate the love partner to the position of God? We want redemption, nothing less. We want to be rid of our faults, of our feelings of nothingness. We want to be justified, to know that our creation has not been in vain. We turn to the love partner for the experience of the heroic, the perfect validation. We expect them to make us good through love. And of course, this intuitively makes sense to us. When we find someone that we're attracted to, we naturally tend to put them and elevate them higher than they actually are.
men make such fools of themselves in front of women that they're attracted to. It's because, first of all, they don't see the woman that they're attracted to. Because what the hell do they know about her? They don't see her as an individual. They see her as the manifestation of a judgmental ideal.
If this person, this ideal loved me, then maybe I am okay. As J.R.R. Tolkien put it, the praise of the praiseworthy is above all reward. The instinct we have that love is somehow the answer to loneliness isn't wrong. In the Bible, in the book of Genesis, it says that humans are made in the image of God. And in this sermon by Tim Keller, he elaborates on this, saying that what that means, part of what that means is that we're made for relationship. Now, even if you're not religious, you have to acknowledge that an aspect of our biology and evolutionary history is that we are social creatures. But what I like more about the religious framing of the question is that it isn't merely a description, it is instead a prescription. As Paul Vanderklay, a pastor from Sacramento, has put it, people are meant to be loved, not used. And I think if we were to ask people whether they believed this was true, they'd say yes. I don't think very many people would actually say, no, I don't believe that people are meant to be loved. I believe people are meant to be used. And yet, we don't really see this in the way that we live. I think if we're to be honest with ourselves, we use the people that we say we love more than we really love them. Back to the example in Aini's video with the Nujibos and Big Brothers, it's easy to see how the women in this story are being exploited, especially the ones from disadvantaged backgrounds. But let's not pretend that they are simply victims. Back to the story of Xiao Xiao from Aini's video, she was perfectly willing to take the money from these big brothers, but she didn't want to do what was expected of her in return for that. To quote Aini,
honestly, she had just wanted a sugar daddy without providing any sugar, which is probably the case for every neutral boy.
she looks to these men as a source of money so she can live well. She's perfectly willing to take advantage of their longing for companionship with a beautiful woman to make money off of them. Other women, even those from disadvantaged backgrounds, will look to these men and capitalize on their desire for relationships to get money. But these men aren't off the hook either. They don't care about these women. They look to these women, or at least a projected image of these women, to fill a void within them. And while we may be tempted to point our fingers at one side, say that they're the bad guys, whether it be the agencies and managers who abuse disadvantaged women for their own gain, the women who take advantage of the loneliness men feel to make money, or the men who don't look at these women as people, but as things to fulfill their loneliness, everyone here is looking for something from everyone else. Everyone here is using one another. But let's not make the mistake of thinking that this kind of mentality only exists in the dark corners of Chinese livestream. No, this mentality is pervasive among all of us. We look to people, and we don't see them as people to be loved, but things to fulfill a need inside us. The discussion online around dating, romance, and relationships is quite telling in this regard, whether it is on the side of the red pill podcaster types who talk about women as though they're prizes to be won, another number to add to show how manly they are, or just unreasonable people with unreasonable demands. Or it's young women online who talk about marriage and relationships as though it was simply a way to finance their lives or to make their lives better.
We should not be afraid to leave these men. We are not stuck with these people. Marriage is not a sanctimonious thing. It is paperwork. It's something, it's a commitment you make to someone. But if you feel like you're not getting anything from that commitment and you're trying, you gotta go. You gotta go. You have to go.
Or even just regular everyday people who want to live with their spouses before they're married. It seems that people today engage with romantic relationships with a posture that says, I'm in this as long as you're fulfilling my needs. When we approach love in this way, be it romantic or otherwise, we look to use others to match the need for love in us. We don't see them as people, but as resources. We use people, but we don't love them. Needless to say, when we approach each other in this way, no one ends up satisfied, because this isn't the love that we want. So what kind of love do we want? I think the kind of love that we want deep within our core is a love that will last. The kind of love that stays with us even when times are tough. The kind of love that can see us when we are at our worst and still choose to be there. And yet, very few are able to actually provide this kind of love. Paul Vanderklay has this great illustration he uses, where we see that the line to be loved is long, while the line to love and pay attention to others is empty. The kind of love we want, one that lasts, demands self-sacrifice. It stands against our instinct to look for love as opposed to giving it. And yet, what we find is that if we are lining up to be loved, we are in the same boat as everyone else, with so little love to go around. But if we line up to love others, if we choose to be people that treat each other with love, we'll find a never-ending supply of people to love. To love in this way requires power. Power that, quite frankly, most of us don't really have. How can we give love without expecting any in return? We look to the figure of Jesus, who perfected self-sacrifice. He didn't look for people who could benefit him. He went out looking for people to love. He found the most hated and ate with them. And at the end of his life, at the cross, he saw the worst of humanity. Not just the ones who were there to kill him, but the worst of us as well. And even there, he stayed out of love. He looked upon you and me, saw the worst we had to offer, and still loved us. If he could love us then, we can look to him to love us now, regardless of how much love we receive from the world around us. The antidote to loneliness is love, but it isn't just any kind of love. It is the love of Christ, both as we experience it and in the way other people experience it through us. As we strive to follow him and walk in his love, let us focus on loving others truly and genuinely, facing them as they really are, both the highs and the lows. Let us be the kind of people who can really provide that kind of love, and let us embody the idea that people are meant to be loved and not used.